to Unbreakable. The E today in Unbreakable is for emotions, emotional control. Remember, emotions are data, not directions. Hey, welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope everybody had a great weekend. Happy Monday. I know I had a phenomenal weekend and I hope yours was too. So I want to jump right into Unbreakable. We've been reviewing the acronyms, for Unbreakable, the U, the N, the B, the R. Today is Monday. We're going to focus on E, which is the emotional control. That's where all your power is. That's where all of your leadership skills need to be directed toward just being able to control an emotional outcome. And I want to be able to talk about some three coaching points and then give you three tips in order to be able to navigate or to add this to your toolbox so that you can become unbreakable. So that if you get knocked down, if you have to readjust, you're able to do that and you know what steps to follow or what steps to practice in order to be able to do that. So coaching point number one is emotions are data. They're not directions. A lot of times we have this natural response to feel a certain way. We might feel fear. We might feel uncertainty. We have a natural instinct, but the victory really is in our second move, and our second move really is about leadership because we have a choice to jump on that emotion and lead it. So the victory isn't in identifying the emotion. The victory is in leading that particular emotion, and we all have them. And so you can always feel the fire, but you can still control the flame. And the second coaching point is you win with the second response. And so Unbreakable is really about getting an edge. It's about being able to choose. It's about being able to respond. And so a lot of people don't really understand the full scope of emotions, including myself. So one thing I had to do was look up uh, I put on my phone a long time ago the emotional wheel. So, for example, out of college, I learned that anger was not really a major emotion. That was a response to an initial emotion. I didn't it's like, what? So anger is a secondary emotion. But what's the primary emotion? Well, I didn't ever know what that was. So I'm gonna look it up real quick, pull up this emotional wheel just so that I can give you a brief example here. Let's see. We have, for example, we have anger. Okay. When you look at the second level of anger, you start talking about feelings like embarrassed, insecure, jealous, violated, provoked, uh, threatened. So when you feel those things, then you show anger. But the key is being able to identify what that emotion is so that you can neutralize that thing, because it's hard to neutralize anything if you can't identify where it's at. And our personality temperaments really responds to how we're wired and how what emotions will show first. And so in my relationship codes, that's all we talk about. We air every Wednesday at 5 o'clock, but we talk about how we're wired, how we're designed, what's our emotions, what's our strengths, how we respond to stressors. And everybody is going to respond differently. And so it's super, super, super important to really learn how you're wired, because then that will tell you how you will respond in a situation. It will tell you what type of a situation you will function best in. And so you should never really be worried about a job. You should be worried about how I'm wired. Do I know how I'm wired? Because when you know that, that's where your power comes from. You can say, okay, this is how I'm wired. I can always adjust and go here. I can always adjust and go there. When you don't know that, you kind of feel lost and helpless because you don't know what to do next if something happens to your job. And so that's coaching point number 2. Coaching point number 3 is pressure doesn't create the emotion, it exposes it. And so a lot of times when we experience pressure, we'll get an emotion. Sometimes we'll back up and withdraw. Sometimes we'll quit. Sometimes we don't want to play anymore. Sometimes we don't want to participate anymore. Sometimes we say, I'm not going to give. It's going to be my way or the highway. And that's what you get in a lot of relationship dynamics. That's what you get after a loss of a career uh, due to an injury. If you're in athletics, loss due to a love relationship, you start getting these unidentified, what the true emotions really are. And when you can't identify what it is, you are not able to move forward. And so it can really paralyze you. And so I learned a long time ago, my first job out of college, we went over this conflict cycle. And in the conflict cycle, it had stressful event started first. That was like a whole 4-hour training just on stressful events. And you would be surprised at how we respond to stress, how we're not prepared to respond to stress, how when we do respond, we respond based off of how we seen other people respond to it, not necessarily responding to it in a healthy way based on how we're designed or how we're wired in a way that really helps our body and our mindset to be able to overcome those things. So you had the stressful event, then you went to the very next step was thoughts. So this whole time when you have a stressful event, you have these quiet self-talks that's going on that creates these thoughts. Now, the biggest battle you'll ever fight is always in your mind. That's where it starts first. You either win the victory in your mind or you lose the victory in your mind because of what you're telling yourself. Then once you have your thoughts, it's your thoughts that leads to feelings. So that when you have an emotion right off the bat, it's telling you you have a particular thought that's driving that. Sometimes people's emotions are so strong that they're not able to dial it back, think about what they're thinking because their emotions has taken over. And that's why it's so important to be able to have emotional control, because once you can slow down your emotions and get into some mental thoughts about what happened, what's going on, what did I do? Why am I feeling this way? Then you can begin to take back your own power, your own emotional drive. And then you can make better decisions because remember, it's not the emotion that makes the decision. It's your ability to be a good leader of your own emotions. And so that was something I really wanted to be able to share about that because it's super important. And so I want to talk about I looked up and did a little research and I saw 10 things that attacks your emotions, 10 things that make us angry, the top 10 things. So I looked them up. I said, well, let me talk about those 10 things first. And then I want to talk about 3 strategies to resetting your emotional frame for victory so that you can win with the second decision and identify what the emotion are with your first decision. So here are 10 things that attacks your emotion. Number 10, stressful situations. Now we just talked about stressful events drives our thoughts. Our thoughts goes to our feelings. Number 9 is grief or loss. Sometimes, we're sad about losing loved ones. Everybody's going to grieve totally different. How person A grieves is totally different than how person B grieves. We're all going to grieve differently. And it's because we generally are wired differently. Again, that's why it's so important to understand how you're wired. It's and operate that. It's not a exercise to laugh at. It's really something to, you can have fun when you understand how you wired, but it's really something to study and master, because when you can master that, you can really master situations all the way around you. I know I've done it. I've been in some really tough spots. I've done some really good things, and I've done more good things than I have been in tough spots. And it's because I'm aware of it. And so if you're ever interested and you want to get more information about a personal assessment, look, just type in below personal assessment, and I'll get you 3 different levels: a free one, a mid-level one, and a higher level one, depending on how serious you are and how well you want to manage your own emotions, dictate your own life, create your own income, take things to another level. You'll be able to do that. And so uh, that was loss and grief was number 9. Number 8 was past trauma. Sometimes different things reminds us of different past traumas that we have. Again, we need to understand that emotional will to identify and isolate what the true feeling was about that. Was it because I felt neglected? Was it because I felt like I didn't have any value? So now I'm going to all of a sudden want these high value things because I didn't feel no one value me. So now I'm going to put that standard on somebody else. But that's just one of the things that is a part of the past trauma. Number 7 is disapproval or criticism. Sometimes people don't understand what correction is and adjustment. It's really to help you level up. It's not really to hurt your feelings. And the major question is, why do you feel that way? Somebody corrected me or somebody adjusted, somebody's trying to tell me something and I'm just not going to listen to it. Really, you should be asking yourself, why do I feel this way? What is it in me that I can't listen to it? If it doesn't fit, then it shouldn't bother me. But why does it bother me? Number 6 is being excluded or ignored. Um, Number 5 is feeling helplessness or a loss of control. Number 4 is challenged beliefs. Because somebody doesn't do things the way I do them, now we have a conflict. Now we have an emotional outburst. Now we have a level of intensity in our emotions. And now we start thinking, we make decisions, we do things, we hurt people, we lash out at people just because they have a difference of values or a different opinion. But what is it about that it's upset you so much that you have this type of an emotional response or outburst? And number 3 is uh, unjust treatment. So no one likes to be treated unfairly. I remember the first job I was forced to resign or be fired. The whole tone and everybody was like, you should sue. You should sue. My attitude was, I'm not going to be nowhere I'm not wanted. Relationships, jobs, anything. If I'm not wanted there, and that doesn't determine my value, because I know what my gifts, strengths, my stressors are, my talents. I know how to adjust. I know how to control and lead my own emotions. Look, I left that job and went right on to the next one. And guess what? It paid twice as much with a bigger title and more responsibilities. And that's a positive from a situation where you feel that you was unjustly treated. And so there are some major benefits in understanding how you're wired. And then betrayal is number two. And number one is rejection, feeling unwanted. And that can create a deeply affected your self-worth and your emotional stability because everybody wants to be a part of something. Everybody wants to be included. The people don't want to feel uh rejected. They don't want to feel that. But really, what is that message saying? If someone doesn't value you, that's their loss. But when you don't know how you're wired and what your own value is, you begin to point the finger at everybody else and every situation around you, and it just doesn't turn out positive for you. So I have 3 steps in closing. Step number one that I want to be able to put out here. Let me pull it, make sure I put it up on the screen for you guys. Number one, name it to neutralize it. Now, I had to get an emotional will so that I can learn exactly what the emotion is so that I'm able to neutralize that particular behavior. And so you want to call it out. For example, I feel not valued. I feel embarrassed. I feel like sad because I didn't practice the information. And when you can identify and neutralize with that emotion, then you can begin to make your choice. So when you name the emotion, you start to take back control. When you can't name what the exact emotion is, then you lose control and then you're making emotional reactions versus neutralizing it and then leading that particular emotion. The second one is breathe before you break. Breathe before you break. Breathing is so important. It looks like this. Something happens and you so fired up. It's time to inhale for 4 seconds. Hold for 4. Exhale for 6. Inhale for 4. Hold for 4. Exhale for 6. And I remember using this exercise a couple of times, and I used it one major time. One day I walked in the house and everything was gone. I was in a situationship, and when I came home, everything was gone and disappeared. The very first thing I had to do was work on my deep breathing exercises because my emotional response was termination. So I had to work on my breathing, and I had to work on that deep breathing exercise for about 20 minutes. And what that does is it helps you to begin to gain emotional control. It helps you begin to get your brain back under control. It helps you to level and get oxygen to your brain so that it can not tighten up on your emotions, and it starts to settle your body down, because when you tighten up, you don't think, things are flowing, emotions is going, you're just not even rational anymore. And so I did that for about 20 minutes, and then I was able to recover real nicely, and was able to get into some things and get ready to move on with the next chapter of my life, which was beautiful. And then the third step is ask a power question. You should ask yourself, okay, what outcome do I want right now? Will this response move me forward, or is it going to set me back? What would the best version of me do next? What if I was healthy? What if I was happy? What if I was whole? What would that person do next? It's hard to ask those questions if you don't neutralize it, if you don't work on your deep breathing and then start questioning yourself. So then that way you begin to lead your emotion versus having your emotion lead you. Okay. So number 2 was make sure you breathe, do your inhale for 4, exhale, hold, and then exhale for 6. Then ask yourself these questions. What outcome do I want right now? What is it going to represent for me moving forward, or is it going to set me back? And what would the best version of me do? And remember this, your emotions don't get to make your decisions. Your vision does. And if you don't have a vision for where you want to go and how you want to do things, and it's not rolled out, then when the storms come, you'll get swept up and you'll just go whichever way your emotions will take you. Hey, look, that's my time for the day. I will be back tomorrow where we focus on the A. In the meantime, use these tips. I hope you found it helpful. Everybody take care. Have a happy Monday.